Voltage control.
Hey, what up, world? Voltage Controller, aka Shiro Fujioka, back again with another 4-year review. This is the review that I had to put on pause for a little bit because I got a call from my good friend at Electron, and I was told that a new update was coming out, and so I put the review on pause because I was speaking about the pros and cons of the gear and the instrument, and that con no longer exists. Yes, we are talking about the Digitakt and the new update. You know, we got song mode, so that was one of my main gripes of something that was needed in this machine to turn it into a classic. And yeah, so stay tuned, and we're going to talk about the Digitakt. So I would say first and foremost, what I like to speak about when I talk about the motivation behind getting a new instrument is what problem it was solving, or what was the motivation behind getting it. And at the time when I purchased it, I was like heavily into modular. Like I was doing lots of modular live sets, and a few years prior to getting the Digitakt, I'd finally I pretty much stopped using samples for, I believe it was like 7.5 years. I went strictly modular because I really wanted to dive deep and understand the modular, language and patching styles and different things like that. So I pushed samples to the side to fully immerse myself in modular. And from there, I decided I wanted to start incorporating drums. And I tried a few drum modules, but I'm just not a big fan of the space it takes, and sequencing in the modular wasn't my favorite. So I knew I came to the realization that I wanted my drums outside of the modular. So I started looking at drum machines. But at the time, I was spending more money on modular gear, so I didn't really have the extra funds to spend on a like full-fledged drum machine. So to start out, I got the Volca Beats. It was flexible enough. I liked the sound. It was small, which was great for live shows and gigging, and it just had a good sound quality to it. And I really enjoyed it, and had some patching capabilities where I could easily incorporate it with the modular. And I was actually clocking the Volca with the modular, so if I would have like shifts in tempo in the modular, the drums would follow, and it was like a really flexible and fun instrument to use with the modular. But then I got to the point where I wanted more drum voices and more advanced sequencing, so I started looking at a bunch of drum machines. Finally came to the machine drum and stuck with that for quite a few years, and fell in love with the Electron workflow. As abstract as it is, it just really spoke to me, and using the machine drum is what led me to really looking into Electron as an option for a sampler, because I come from an MPC background. I started on the MPC 62 back in '91, and boom bap certified since then. And I wanted to explore something outside of that. I wanted to expand my mind, and for my music to also follow that expansion, I needed an instrument that assisted me in thinking different. So when I started thinking about samplers, that brought me to at the time, the only sampler that was out was the Octatrack, and a lot of my friends were getting them. And I was still in the modular. I was like, I just don't see spending that kind of money on a sampler right now. But I was very intrigued, and just kind of put it in the back of my head. And then a little bit later, the Digitakt came out, and I was like, oh, I thought it was going to be like a Octatrack Lite, but it's honestly totally different approach than the Octatrack. There are some similarities, like it has some great sampling, mangling capabilities, not to the extent of the Octatrack, but it will definitely get you there. So yes, that brings us to the Digitakt. I finally decided on this as my first sampler, back into getting into samples, post MPC 60 sequencer brain, and rewiring my brain to the Electron workflow, via the machine drum, brought me to the more modern approach to the Electron sequencers. And I was totally blown away with, P-locks and probability, and, just all the sample mangling capabilities. And it was just like a great choice. So I started looking at the Digitakt seriously. and seeing how I could integrate it into the modular. First and foremost, it didn't have direct patching capabilities. Like even like something like the Volca. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna also need to get like a MIDI to CV module in order to incorporate this with my modular. So I took that into account, for my decision to purchase, and still was fine with it because I really liked it, and it was really time for me to start incorporating samples. But I didn't want to be stuck with a sampler that was just like a sampling drum machine. I wanted something that could push my music a little further, where I can get into a little bit more sound design and, again, with the probabilities and P-locks and all that stuff, to be able to incorporate that with the module was like super exciting to me. So first and foremost, went with the Digitakt. Thing I love about Electron instruments, build quality is excellent, and I was gigging a lot at the time, so I needed something that was sturdy. Not that I'm like careless and throwing shit around, but it's just good to have stuff that's built a little more sturdy, that's not plastic, it's not going to crack and all that kind of stuff. So first and foremost, I love that. Again, even coming from the MPC background and liking pads, for whatever reason, there's something about these buttons that I like that remind me of my time using the SP1200, because SP1200 had these like really plastic keys and buttons, and I don't know, it's just to me nostalgic. I also like pads too, but for this form factor, for some reason, the buttons just, it works for me. It's a personal preference, it's not a science. But yeah, so the tactile nature of it, I enjoyed a lot. Like the build quality. So then, of course, the hot button topic is what it sounds like. This is why we picked these instruments in the first place. So the sound quality is something that I really enjoyed exploring with the Digitakt. Like most instruments from any company, but I would say because I'm a big fan of the Electron workflow and sound, they have a specific sonic signature that I really like, and the Digitakt specifically. I don't know what it is. Of course we could get technical and talk about the DACs and, get nerdy, but I like to keep this on the level of musician, creative, and, human interaction, not so much from the scientific measure baters perspective, but shout out to all my nerds out there. Like I have oscilloscopes and I like looking at waveforms. I've laid out circuits, I've built modules from scratch with, using Eagle and getting circuit boards made and soldering through whole circuits and building modules from scratch for the community. People know me for that as well. But I like to keep it on the perspective of artists. So from an artist perspective, it just has a really great sonic signature. I think it has something to do with the compressor. It just gives it a specific punch that I've grown accustomed to, and I don't want to leave. Like I just love the way like sample gritty drum sound on it. I love the way, like, even if you sample like stuff from the modular and chop it up, it just gives it another layer of sound design and punch. So I love instruments that have a sonic signature. So that paired with the sequencer, paired with the features and functions you get from being able to mangle samples with the LFO and all the points of modulation that you have in this, that's usually not things that you find on typical samplers. And given that I was coming from the background using the modular, that really appealed to me. So I would say the first thing I want to do is again, I don't want to keep it all abracadabra. Let's take a little break. And in this break, one of the first things I did, I purchased this at the same time I got the Digitone, but even though I purchased two instruments, like I didn't open the Digitone for about another month. I just went strictly Digitakt. That's what I do when I buy instruments. Like I like to just sit and focus on just that instrument, and that's what I did with this. So one of the first things that I did was, what can this do that like other drum machines and other samplers can't do? And given that I was coming from the modular background and I was still in modular mode, I was like, okay, so this can, run single cycle waveforms. You can, it has a great sequencer. It's got effects. Let's see if I can get some like modular synth sounding compositions out of this, like maybe like some Buchla inspired sequences and compositions with the samplers. So that's what I'm going to show y'all right now. So check that out, and we will be back with some more nerd talk. Yeah, so as you can see, the Digitakt definitely passes that can it sound like a synthesizer challenge, as you could hear and check out that last video that I played. And so I was hooked. I was hooked. I was like, okay, sound design wise, I could feed this single cycle waveforms from the modular. I could sample some of my other synths, and I could literally just use this and make like some ambient music, or just some abstract synth sequences that sound like a modular. In the times that I don't want to make a full modular patch and I'm just in like sound design mode, I still have something that'll get me there. Or even if I want to have some sequences in here that sound like a modular sequence, to use as a transition while I'm repatching or something like that. That's another way that I've used it in live shows. It's like I need to change a few elements in the patch, but I still want some modular sounding, energy going. So I'll program something in here and have a few sequences in here that'll buy me some time to repatch, and then I could shift over and move to the next sequence and, put the modular back in the mix, as well as, with samples and drums or whatever, because this is, during the time I was developing what we now know as Modbap. I started doing with the actually technically with the vocal beats, and the MPC 60 was also some of the first Modbap combinations that I did, but I went heavy when I got the Digitakt, and that's really when I started exploring sequencing the modular with this. So that brings us to the next reason to get this is it's a great sequencer. It's great for sequencing the samples, but then you also have a full-fledged MIDI sequencer as well. So what I started doing, my setup for this, for my Modbap setup, was a 6U modular and the Digitakt, MIDI to CV module to control the modular from the Digitakt. And excuse me, pardon me. So what I did was I had a 4-voice modular, so I used 4 of the voices in the Digitakt to control, the oscillators, the 4 oscillators. Then I would still have more MIDI channels that I would use for, clocking, clock dividers, firing off envelopes and things of that nature. So, this was really sequencing a lot of elements of my modular, which was really nice. And, because you can save all your sequences in here, and once you tune your modular and you have a performance patch, you basically have patch recall, via the Digitakt, which was excellent for my live shows because I shrunk down to a smaller case, and I was finally able to gig with just the Digitakt and a 6U modular, and rock for, I've done, from 30 minutes to an hour set with this combination, and still know like if someone was late or someone was setting up, I could still go like another extra, 20-30 minutes of just like improv and like fucking around without skipping a beat. So really flexible combo. So that brings me to the next reason why I would of course want a sampler, is because I come from the boom bap era, and I wanted to know, would this sampler be able to make boom bap, because at least from the way electrons market it, their instruments seem to be suited more for dance music, techno, house, and things of that nature, and not so much for boom bap. But I mean, rhythmic based music is rhythmic based music. So I figured, if it has a sequencer and you can sample sounds, you can make boom bap with it. And of course you can, but I would say if we want to talk about one of the cons from the boom bap perspective, I would say is performance effects aren't its strong point, the way they're set up. You can, turn the delay on and turn the reverb on and do some filtering and stuff like that live, but it just doesn't have the same performance feature like, something like SB404 or something like that. The effects are a little more playable. But that wasn't a game changer for me, and that wasn't a deal, but I should say that wasn't a deal breaker for me. Because again, with my sonic signature and wanting to have my own sound, I didn't really want to even be in that territory to sound like everybody that had a 404. So I had to find new ways to do performance effects. A lot of it was based in the modular, and some of it was based in here. I had little tricks and stuff that I did. So, that was like my next series of test and demos is, can it boom bap? And, what was it like, chopping up samples and stuff like that. And yeah, definitely passed the test for that. You know, I've done small beat sets with just this, using it kind of more like a mini Ableton, where each one of the tracks is like launching clips. You know, one might launch, you know, a chopped up sample, the other one would launch a drum loop. You know, and I would have like, you know, a few of those laid out and do a little beat set that way. You know, of course you can have, you know, your one shots and program drums and save, you know, like, you know, 3 or 4 pads for chopping up samples, and you're still in the same territory as like an MPC SP404 or whatever. And I was very satisfied with that. And yeah, so now instead of abracablabbering about that, I'll stop and show you some of the videos that I've made, some little clips from, you know, my past 4 years with the Digitakt, you know, in boom bap mode. So let's check that out, and then we'll come back and talk about a few more functions and features. And yeah, thanks for joining.
Kiss it.
Kiss the
I'm rocking beats and with death defying beats and I'm never squeaking. I'm always freaking when I'm speaking.
Time I roster, we can do this forever infinite.
I'm rocking beats and with death defying beats.
Time I roster, we can do this forever infinite.
I'm rocking beats and with death defying beats. I'm rocking beats and with death defying beats.
Time I roster, we can do this forever infinite. Then reminisce 20 years later how we was getting it.
He's not the kind that fights you.
Spin, spider, spin.
He's the kind that just delights you.
Spin, spider, spin. He's a tiny, harmless spider, the kind that catches flies. So let him swing on a silver string, a pleasure to the eyes. La 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 la, spin, spider, spin. La 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 la, spin, spider, spin.
This is the year that I come and just devastate.
ladies and gentlemen, we are back, and that was my just a little highlight reel of little moments from the past 4 years with the Digitakt. Of course, you can see much more. Just check out the Digitakt playlist on the channel, and you can see hundreds of Digitakt videos from the past 4 years of me using it. So to round this out, of course, I like to talk about these instruments being sound investments, pun intended. You want to purchase something that will grow with you, and the value per dollar, I can say, is very high on the electron music instruments. First and foremost, when you buy these instruments, like when I bought it, not the year it came out, the year after it was released, and I believe like within the first 6 months to a year, it already had like 1 or 2 updates. Then the year that I bought it, it probably had another, 1 or 2 updates. And throughout the years, it's just constantly being updated and updated. Sometimes it'll be like bug fixes and stuff that's in the background that you don't really notice. And then other times it'll just be like major functions and features will be added that really turn this instrument into something else. It like literally grows with you. So I think, when we go to purchase instruments, it's always good to find a company that is constantly going to be, growing and developing their instruments, instead of, taking the iPhone approach and, putting out something new every year that's slightly different, slightly better. It's good to have these products that are turning into legacy products, that are going, you could see a lot of the electron stuff 5-10 years down the line. It's just as good and a lot of the times better than even when it was first released. So it's good to see a company that stands behind their designs and continues to develop them. And it to me is a way to show that you really appreciate your fan base and your supporters. So like for that, I definitely recommend Electron, because their instruments grow. They grow and they change over time, and this new update is excellent. I'd say one of the biggest requests on the Electronauts forum for the Digitakt, the Digitone, and now the Synthesizer was song mode. It's something like, why isn't there song mode? And I understand that, like, when I got this, I really enjoyed, again, I was from the modular background, and I was just mostly doing modular performances. So it was really fun to just use this as a performance sequencer. I wasn't really into just, pressing play and letting the song go through. But as time progressed and I started working with more singers and MCs and just different situations that called for more song structure and being able to recall that song structure, not, a one-take performance. Song mode puts this in God mode. It's like in video games when things are invincible, they go into God mode. And like, to me, I think the Digitakt is definitely in that space now, because, it has such a small form factor, but so many features and functions packed in it that it's so cool that now, something this small could be the centerpiece of a studio, and run a bunch of different MIDI instruments, as well as modulars, as well as, even hooking it up via USB, and you could run software. You can sequence software instruments at the same time as sequencing hardware instruments, and it really becomes like a great centerpiece. So you have this really advanced sequencer paired to a tracker styled song mode. That's what I like about the song mode. It's more like it's in the style of like a tracker, which is dope. I think that's probably why they came up with the name Octatrack, one of the names for Octatrack. And anyway, that's going on to the next video that I'll do is a video on Octatrack. But keeping it on topic, the Digitakt has definitely grown with this update. Not only with I would say the major feature is song mode, that just opens up a lot. And I would say the other thing that came a few updates ago was being able to use the inputs to input exterior synths is really dope. That's another dope option to have on a sampler and a sequencer, and then you can run it through the effects and overdrive and, that compressor and all that good stuff. So yeah, I highly recommend the Digitakt. 4 years later, would I buy it now? Yes, I would. Some Electron stuff I have 2 of. I have 2 Octatracks, and I could see getting another Digitakt, if given the right circumstances, and it, if I see that I really need it. It's one of those ones that You could use two of. You could use one, you know, strictly for melodic stuff and sample mangling. You could use the other one for drums, you know, or you could just go and get a Digitakt. That's, I mean, a Octatrack as well. That's also an option. But yes, this is a powerhouse. Yes, I recommend it. Yes, it will stay in my studio, you know, indefinitely, because even if I wasn't using it for live situations, I like the sonic signature of it so much that even if I'm recording a project and I'm calling for some like gritty or really punchy drums, this is my go-to. Like even when I'm using my Octatrack, pardon me, my drums are coming from the Digitakt, you know, and I process through the Octatrack. But yeah, this is a mainstay for my drums. And yeah, again, I highly recommend it, and I hope that this review finds you well, and one will encourage you to not only purchase this instrument, but also just to have the perspective on making sound investments, you know, and not buying the flavor of the month and buying an instrument that's going to grow with you. And the Digitakt is definitely one of those ones. So thanks for joining me. I will be back with more reviews. We got the Octatrack review coming up, doing the Synthesizer review very soon, as well as some other stuff. And I'll keep that secret for now. But yeah, thanks for joining me. My name is Shiro Fujioka, aka Voltage Controller. Peace and love, y'all.
Voltage controller.